Welcome back to our World War II series. Now, we continue right where we left off. Let's begin part 5. Many facilities and industrial centers fell into German hands largely intact or with minor damage due to the Red Army's withdrawal. Within the same month, the German forces had fully occupied the peninsula. Later, the important oil city of Maycop was captured on August 9, 1942. However, as the Soviets set fire to the oil facilities while withdrawing, the German forces captured very little fuel. The vanguard of the army reached Krasnodar on the same day. Due to the lack of resistance from the Red Army units, German forces occupied Nalchik, the capital of the Kabardino-Balkar Republic, on November 2, 1942. One of the targets, the city of Grozny, was only 75 kilometers away, but this distance was not overcome. Soviet aircraft stationed at the Grozny airports dealt a heavy blow to the German forces. Therefore, the German army turned toward Algiers, capturing it and then attempting to advance toward Tbilisi. Until that point, the Romanian Doumani had made significant progress, but they were scattered by a sudden Soviet attack. This well-planned Soviet counteroffensive marked the end of Axis advances in the Caucasus. Due to heavy losses and the approaching winter, the operation had to be terminated by Hitler's order. The operation's targets, the oil-rich cities of Grozny, Tbilisi, and Azerbaijan, were not captured, thus the operation failed. Army Group B consisted of German, Hungarian, Romanian, and Italian armies. Under Hitler's order, the renowned German 6th Army mobilized in July 1942 and largely cleared Soviet forces west of the Don River by August 10. However, ongoing Red Army resistance delayed Army Group B's eastward advance. On August 21, the 6th Army crossed the Don River. Hungarian, Italian, and Romanian forces were positioned in this defensive line 60 kilometers from Stalingrad. Elements of the Luftwaffe also moved into the area. At this time, the Luftwaffe conducted air raids over Stalingrad, killing over 40,000 people and turning the city into rubble. The 6th Army advanced from the north, while the 4th Panzer Army advanced from the south via Kotelnikovo toward the city. The 4th Panzer Army launched a major attack toward Stalingrad from the south on August 29. The 6th Army was also ordered to conduct a similar assault. However, strong Soviet counterattacks stopped the 6th Army's advance for 3 days. During this time, Soviet forces escaped encirclement and withdrew into Stalingrad. At this point, the two armies had only one goal: the Germans to capture Stalingrad, the Soviets to defend it to the death. On August 30th, the German encirclement operation was completed. On September 3rd, Soviet forces withdrew into the city. On September 4th, panzer units advanced to the southern suburbs of the city. The Soviet army launched a general counterattack aimed at eliminating the German corridor that had reached the Volga. However, the Luftwaffe and Soviet artillery batteries responded with intensive airstrikes. During the counterattack, 30 out of 120 tanks were destroyed in air raids. On September 7th, the city's airport fell into German hands. As Soviet defense began to withdraw from the suburbs on September 12th, an infantry division under Soviet General Alexander Rumyantsev launched a surprise attack on the Germans. The division recaptured Kurgan and Railway Station No. 1 on September 16th, despite suffering heavy losses. However, of the division's original 10,000 personnel, only 320 remained. The defending division could not withstand the German counterattacks and was recaptured in 2 locations within a short time. The railway station changed hands 14 times in 6 hours. The fighting was so intense that German losses were at least as high as Soviet losses. On September 14th, a German infantry division approached the city center closely. The resistance of the Soviet 62nd Army defending the city was extremely fierce. The average survival time of soldiers sent to this unit in Stalingrad was less than 24 hours. Between September 14th to 15th, the attacks of the 6th Army resumed. However, due to Soviet resistance, no significant progress was achieved. Soviet forces were continuously struck by the German Air Force. On September 20th, a Soviet offensive was prevented from breaking the German lines and was repelled. In this battle, 77 Soviet planes were shot down and 41 Soviet tanks were destroyed. Eventually, Soviet defenses were forced to retreat. Throughout September, German advances in the city continued, albeit slowly. Faced with almost daily attacks supported by air raids, Soviet units had to fall back. The Germans brought the Dora railway gun, used during the siege of Sevastopol, to the outskirts of Stalingrad. This 8-ohm giant gun targeted resistance points in the city and Soviet artillery positions east of the Volga. While advancing along the path opened by the Dora railway gun, the Luftwaffe and Air Forces carried out 900 dive bombing attacks on the Zursky tractor factory on October 5, determined to break Soviet resistance. During this operation, the 93rd Soviet Regiment in the defensive line was completely destroyed. The following morning, in a renewed air operation, the 339th Infantry Regiment was annihilated. In October, this general pattern continued. The German Air Force dropped 60 tons of bombs on Soviet resistance points, forcing the 62nd Soviet Army to fall back to a few hundred meters along the Volga River. Since the beginning of the siege, the Soviet Army had lost 75% of its strength. Had the Soviet Guards Division, which arrived as reinforcements, failed to stop the German attack, the Soviet military presence in Stalingrad would have been completely destroyed. Despite this, the northern part of Stalingrad came entirely under German control. Soviet forces, squeezed into a 1 km wide area west of the Volga, resisted German assaults despite 1,200 air raids, 62 and Army remaining 47,000 troops and 19 tanks. These Axis offensives, starting on October 14th, lasted for 10 days. Red Army resistance points maintained their lines. Until the first weeks of November, the Luftwaffe maintained air supremacy. However, due to the Anglo-Saxon landing in North Africa on November 8, 1942, the Luftwaffe and some of its units were sent to North Africa. German air power was now weak on the Eastern Front. Thank you very much for watching the video. In the next part of the series, we will also examine other major events that changed the course of the war. See you in the next video. Take care.